we look to the future.
I'm sure that everybody has something to say about Dick. Some people have worked very closely with him and have had an experience that is probably much greater than mine. However, I will say that when I met Dick for the first time, he was just a big bunch of sunshine. And every time I'd go back into Scholastic, I would look for him because he made me feel better, because he had this gift of joy that was so indelible. And when he looked at you, his eyes were dancing. Where he was the perfect place, a place that published wonderful, wonderful periodicals, great books, great things for children to actually make them feel better. And the fact that he said, I want to do Mind Up because I want to be on the wave, he said, of the new education, of where we're going to be educating for tomorrow. He was a visionary. But more importantly to me, he was a walking ray of sunshine. And I'm going to miss him. And I guess we could pretty much say people that ran into Dick were lucky. Every now and then we find somebody that just puts a stamp on our heart. He did for me. May he rest in peace.
Hello, everyone. I'm Billy DeMichelle. I remember how Dick would light up every time Goldie Hawn came into the office to meet with him and the education group about our Mind Up program. I think his light shone the brightest when he was presented with great ideas, especially ones he knew could help a child reach their full potential. That's what mattered most. He truly believed that the right stories and information would have a profound effect on a young life. So today, we gather to celebrate the life of Dick Robinson with our stories, because he profoundly affected each one of us. And now please welcome the President and CEO of Scholastic, Peter Warwick.
Well, it's a privilege to be here as only the third chief executive of a company that's just shy of being 101 years old. And it's a privilege to be here before Dick Robinson's colleagues, friends, family members, authors, and a distinguished array of supporters from many walks of life, all of whom admired and loved Dick deeply. Dick was a remarkable man, and that was apparent from the first moments that I met him for breakfast at his usual table at Balthazar just under a decade ago. We were meeting to discuss the possibility that I might join the Scholastic board. We'd met socially before, and I'd imagined Dick would want to go through the Scholastic business and financial performance and interview me about my experience. Well, that didn't happen. Dick talked to me about the power of literacy and education as an engine to change people's lives. He talked to me about that, how it can improve society, how literacy and education can promote greater social equity and increase citizen participation in civic life at all levels. In the way that some people speak passionately about scientists or about sports people, Dick spoke passionately about teachers and librarians, and it was something that he actually had in common with my own parents. So we bonded then, and I joined the Scholastic board 7 years ago. And now that I've succeeded him as president and CEO, I'm truly committed to ensuring that those ideals continue to burn in the company every day. And now it's my honor to introduce our next speakers. please welcome the Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden, former First Lady Laura Bush, and former President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Hello, I'm Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden. On behalf of the Library of Congress staff and from users coast to coast, our hearts go out to Dick Robinson's family and his colleagues at Scholastic. We can't express enough how much Dick meant to us here in Washington, especially his support of the Library of Congress's annual National Book Festival. Scholastic has supported the festival since the very first one 20 years ago. And for 2 decades, families have connected with the wonderful characters that came to life and enjoyed the fun activities at the Scholastic Pavilion. As a former children's librarian, I know the power of great characters and imaginative stories and how they can inspire and open the world to young readers. We saw that firsthand at the Scholastic Pavilion at the National Book Festival. We can't thank you enough for this 20-year relationship of bringing so many smiles to so many kids. In the past couple of years, Dick and I also connected on our fondness and admiration for children's author Virginia Hamilton. Her contributions to children's literature are both historical and colossal. She has received every major award, including being the first African-American writer to win the prestigious Newbery Award in 1975. Scholastic publishes her award-winning book, M.C. Higgins the Great, and her work left a major impression on both me and Dick. The Library of Congress is the home of the Virginia Hamilton Papers, and I want to end with this wonderful quote by her that I believe sums up Dick's lasting legacy as well. The books from which children learn must reflect movement and change and all the infinite possibilities of minds at liberty. Like Virginia Hamilton, Dick Robinson knew the power of books and the lifelong learning and the trust of children to think and question. And for that, we will always be indebted to him. He will be immensely missed. Thank you and take care.
Through his decades of service, Dick Robinson showed us that books can change the world. Following the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, Dick and I worked closely to launch School Libraries Work, which addressed the role school libraries play in our schools and communities. Dick tirelessly called on corporations and foundations nationwide, encouraging them to commit funds and resources to rebuild school libraries in the region. He believed school libraries should be the center of our children's learning, and he is right. As CEO of Scholastic for over 45 years, Dick Robinson made sure that millions of books found their way to children, no matter where they were and no matter what their circumstances. He approached every day with enthusiasm, and thanks to his terrific work and lifelong commitment to reading, Scholastic will support children and teachers for generations to come. Dick Robinson was a remarkable and generous man, and he'll be sorely missed.
I'm so honored for the chance to add my voice to all of you giving thanks for and celebrating the remarkable life and legacy of Dick Robinson. He was a kind, intelligent, compassionate man who gave his life to making literature exciting and accessible for young readers all around the world. Dick always believed that reading and access to books was a fundamental right, not a luxury. And from Harry Potter to the Magic School Bus, he understood the transformative power that books hold and the need for every young person to be equally able to experience these adventures, to learn, to connect with one another along the way. Hillary, Chelsea, and I are especially grateful to Dick for the incredible partnership he helped form between Scholastic and our foundation's Early Learning and Literacy Initiative, Too Small to Fail. Thanks to Scholastic's generosity, Too Small to Fail and its partners have been able to promote the reading and to distribute hundreds of thousands of books to communities in need across the country, making a difference for life, for children and families. So Dick, thanks for all you were. Thanks for the grace and kindness with which you treated me and everyone else. We'll miss you. Know that our world is better because you were in it.
Hello, I'm Maggie Williams. When I met Dick nearly 30 years ago, I told him that my mother, Irma Williams, had introduced me to Scholastic, whose central mission was that children, enter kindergarten and grade school as skilled readers. I need to meet her, Dick said. He wasn't just being polite, he actually meant it. Mom and Dick would speak several times in mutual admiration, and when I saw or spoke with Dick, he'd always ask how Mother's school was doing, and she'd always want to know how Mr. Robinson was and what was new at Scholastic. Before I had the honor of joining its board, I did some consulting work for Scholastic. At one point, Dick asked me to research and write a paper on the future of reading. I was intrigued, but hesitant. I told Dick that wasn't my area of expertise. Make it yours, he said. You could start by calling your mom. Mom completed 40 years at the Learning Center in 2017, and Dick sent her a letter that was read at her retirement ceremony. As always with him, the message was full of grace and wit. It said, and I quote, "Scholastic is proud to join in wishing you our heartfelt congratulations on the occasion of your early retirement at 91, end quote. It struck me then, and does still, that what Dick said about my mom applied even more to him. Spanning many decades, he wrote, your career as an innovator and leader in early childhood education is an inspiration to teachers everywhere and a guide to all who strive to build young children's reading skills. Dick also announced Scholastic gift of hundreds of books to the Learning Center, which we hope, he said, will help extend your wonderful legacy and be a tribute to the genius and commitment to children that have marked your life's work. Another echo of Dick's life and values and the tributes we pay him today. My mom passed away in July, just weeks after we lost Dick. Going through her things, I found his letter, and it made me think again how grateful I am that my mother introduced me to Scholastic and how blessed I was, as we all are, to know Dick Robinson, a true patron saint of reading who did so much for so many children for so long. Thank you. And now it is my special pleasure to present our next speaker, Dick's son, Reese Robinson.
There was no one like my father, Dick Robinson. Like his father, Robbie, who started Scholastic in 1920, Dick had a passion to make literacy available to all by providing magazines and books that were relevant and readable from generation to generation. His goal was to encourage the love of reading in and outside of the classroom. Through this dedication, he lived a life of incredible service to children, parents, and teachers worldwide. My father's accomplishments were matched only by his buoyant personality. He radiated warmth through his smiling eyes and his contagious laugh. His sincerity was felt in every interaction with him. I miss his voice the most. My aunts Sue, Bunny, Dover, my Uncle Bill, my brother Ben, my mother, and I were blessed to have had lots of time with our father. We will cherish the memories of the holidays and weekends we spent with him during COVID, when he wasn't working 12-hour days. During our weekly dinners, my father and I discussed Scholastic a great deal, the problems facing children today, politics, and current events. Those who spent time with Dick know that there is no one with more stimulating dinner table conversation than him. His driving concern for children's literacy and well-being only increased with the pandemic. He was unsettled by the rise of disinformation and was resolute in his belief that Scholastic has an important role in presenting history and current events to children with neutrality. He believed that children are capable of making decisions about the world on their own once given the facts. It is this idealism, passion, and dedication that has carried Scholastic into its second century as the symbol that it is. I know that we have the capability and collective will to carry this responsibility forward to the children of the future. I will remember my father most for his spirit. He was steadfast, and he didn't sweat the small things in life. When he had the opportunity, he enjoyed himself to the fullest. Here's to you, Dad. You have always inspired me. Your lasting impression will be felt not only by those of us lucky enough to have known you, but by the millions of children that you have touched through your lifelong work.
Thank you, Reese. Scholastic has been blessed with so many extraordinary children's storytellers who, as Reese said, touched the lives of millions of young readers for decades. Their books have inspired, delighted, thrilled, and helped move generations of children forward in their lives. That was Dick's vision. His passion for instilling a lifelong love of reading in all children was something each one of our authors recognized and admired. Here now are J.K. Rowling, Suzanne Collins, Brian Selznick, Pam Munoz-Ryan, Dave Pilkey, and Ruby Bridges.
I first met Dick in 1998. It was my first time ever in the States, and it was my first Harry Potter tour. And Harry Potter wasn't very well known at all in America at that time. Scholastic had bought this first-time novel, and they held an event for me at the top of their very big, very beautiful building. And Dick arrived, and he was a legend in the children's book industry, and he published so many extraordinary children's books, and he shook my hand, and he was very nice, and I did a short reading from Philosopher's Stone, and we parted ways. And then I moved on 2 cities, and I came back to my hotel room after doing a reading and a signing, and the light was flashing on my phone, and someone had left a message. So I pressed the button, and there was a message from Dick Robinson, and he said, "I'm not going to lie to you, I hadn't read your book. But after you read that scene about Harry getting his wand, I thought, I want to know what happens next." So he said he went away from the breakfast and he read the whole book, and he was calling me directly to say, "I think you've written a really amazing book." And that meant the world to me. I was the first-time writer. Dick Robinson had seen so many great children's writers come and go. And he was a really important figure in my career. He was a kind, gifted, charming, philanthropic man. And I was devastated when Dick died. And my abiding memory of him will be the fact that he took the trouble to call a first-time author and tell her that he thought her book was amazing.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Collins. I had the pleasure of sitting next to Dick the night he became the 2019 PEN America Publisher Honoree. The event was held at the Museum of Natural History, where an enormous blue whale dangled over our heads, and the publishing world cheered as he took the stage to receive his award. No one shared accolades more readily than Dick. If people gave him a round of applause, he'd immediately say something like, "Thank you, but these authors could have said it better." Or he'd direct your appreciation to Scholastic's 10,000 employees. But the truth is, we were all just lucky to have him at the helm. Dick made literacy his life's work. He grasped how the ability to read can change lives, and he set about guaranteeing that right for every child, one story at a time. For all his graciousness, when it came to spreading literacy, Dick was the conductor. And the rest of us, we were members of the orchestra. A cellist or bass drummer, every musician is important, but still only one player in the overall composition. Dick knew how to arrange those musicians and broadcast their eclectic voices around the globe. It reminds me of a passage from Norton Juster's The Phantom Tollbooth, where Chroma the Great, conductor of color, maestro of pigment, and director of the entire spectrum, explains his job to Milo. "You see what a dull place the world would be without color," he said, bowing until his chin almost touched the ground. "But what pleasure to lead my violins in a serenade of spring green, or hear my trumpets blare out the blue sea, and then watch the oboes tint it all in a warm yellow sunshine. And rainbows are best of all. And blazing neon signs, and taxi cabs with stripes, and the soft muted tones of a foggy day. We play them all." So thank you, Dick Robinson, for your guidance and kindness and incredible support, and for bringing all those varied and colorful books to kids around the world. It's been a privilege to be part of the orchestra.
I'd like to share with you a dream I had a few weeks ago. In the dream, Dick and I were crossing the street into a huge 19th century theater. It was his theater, and we walked together through the grand entrance directly into a huge auditorium bursting with life. People were moving in every direction with pieces of scenery, ropes, and lights all around us. There was probably all the members of the orchestra Suzanne was just describing running around too. We continued walking straight through all the hustle and bustle until we passed beneath an ornate proscenium that arched up over our heads. We crossed onto the stage, which was wide and clear, and walked straight to the back, where a metal handrail stretched across the entire length of the stage. We leaned over the handrail and looked down. Far below, to my surprise, was a wild, rushing river running directly beneath the theater. Dick and I stood at the handrail and watched the river for a while. The sound of the water was loud and soothing. Then he turned to me with a wonderful smile and said, "This is golden," which seemed to mean that he loved this theater and everyone who worked in it. The meaning of the dream seemed pretty clear. When I first met Dick, I remember walking through Scholastic with him, and it struck me that he seemed to know the name of every person we passed in the hallways and on the elevators. He knew their jobs, and he seemed happy and eager to talk with each of them. I was just as astounded a few years later when we went out to eat at a restaurant, which I later discovered he co-owned, that he also knew the names of the entire waitstaff and the busboys working there. He was proud of the people who worked for him, and he created an atmosphere where the sense of family was very real. I've published with Scholastic for 28 years, and the fact that almost everyone I work with at Scholastic has been there for 2 decades or longer is a testament to Dick's sense of family. Salman Rushdie once imagined an ocean as the source of all stories in the world. But maybe stories are found as well in a rushing river, endlessly coming from some unknown source and running directly beneath us. In my dream, Dick's magnificent building stood directly above a river from which stories could be brought up and shared with the world. Opening a book is like opening curtains in a dream theater where everything can happen and anyone can be the star. The sets change, the lights are readjusted, the players put on different costumes and take the stage, but the stories start here. All over the world, children have stories to share, to live inside of, to dream upon because of Dick Robinson. Even if they never knew his name, their names would have mattered to him. Generations of children have grown up being part of a family they may not have known existed because of Dick. We have relatives in almost every corner of the world, and the river that connects us runs deep. It was nice to see Dick in my dreams. He had the same smile he always wore when we met. I promise I'll continue to try to make him proud. He was golden indeed.
Hello, everyone in my Scholastic family. This is Pam Munoz-Ryan, and like all of you, I celebrate Dick Robinson today with a full yet sad heart. I signed my first contract with Scholastic in 1996, 25 years ago. I have many fond memories of Dick, but I think the NCTE dinners stand out the most. When Dick would read his father's letter in a room of 1,000 English teachers, it was sentimental and moving, and it never got old. He left us with so many gifts: his enthusiasm, his dedication for a more literate world, his resolve for inclusiveness and diversity and the opening of minds, and his enduring respect for educators. I'm so grateful for his support of me and my books, and I'm so proud to be a small part of Scholastic's history. Today, as this video is shown, I'm at a small literacy conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I think that's exactly where Dick would want me to be, sharing stories and books with teachers and children. Thank you, Dick Robinson, for your creativity and your foresight and your indestructible light. I will miss him, but I look forward to carrying on his legacy with all of you in this company that changes lives. Thank you.
One of my favorite memories of Dick Robinson happened in 2015 when the 12th Captain Underpants book was coming out. In the book, George and Harold traveled forward in time to meet their future selves, and they discover that they're both members of happy, healthy, loving families. George has a wife and 2 kids, and Harold has a husband and 2 kids. Dick read the book before it was published, and he was completely enthusiastic and supportive, as usual, but he knew that not everybody was going to feel that way. He also knew that it wouldn't be long before an avalanche of angry, threatening letters would start to arrive at the offices of Scholastic, and he was right. Now, the policy at Scholastic is that every complaint gets a response. I'd like to read you a portion of the first draft of that response. Dear reader, we're very sorry that you were offended, blah, blah, blah. It was an okay response, I guess, but it was not okay with Dick. So Dick Robinson, the CEO of Scholastic, decided to rewrite the letter himself, and he made one very important change. He took out the phrase, "We're sorry," because he wasn't sorry. Dick Robinson believed in diversity and equality, and he wanted to see these things reflected in the books that Scholastic published. A lot of people talk about changing the world. Dick Robinson stopped talking about that a long time ago, and he just started doing it. I have so many stories about Dick's bravery and his compassion, and they're just a handful of the many, many reasons why for the past 25 years I have been so honored to call Dick Robinson my captain, my hero, and my friend.
To Dick's family and friends, first I offer my deepest condolences to each of you during this challenging time. It is indeed a privilege to share a few words from my heart. Today, we are coming together to celebrate the life and say our final goodbyes to a great pioneer and visionary. But most importantly, to my very dear friend, Dick Robinson. The other day, a friend said to me, "What a difference a day makes." Truer words have never been spoken, but consider the difference a year and a half makes. How many of us would have ever imagined how much our lives would have changed since March 2020? And no doubt, our lives have changed forever. In my case, I lost my mom this past November, which was a very difficult thing for me to handle. Losing a parent, especially when it's your only parent, that's hard. And then Dick passed. What a devastating shock to us all. Personally, I remember feeling a sense of guilt when he passed away, because it seemed to hit me harder than losing my own parent, my mom. And I couldn't quite understand why. I thought to myself, why am I affected this way? And then it hit me. Dick's passing reminded me of the loss of my own dad, who I also lost suddenly to a massive heart attack. My father was only 46 years old, and I was then turning 21. You see, I was a daddy's girl, and he was the parent who told me that I was special and that I would grow up to do great things. Dick Robinson did the same for me. Every time I was invited to attend a special event or asked to speak, he would always be right there, front row, cheering me on. Then afterwards, he would greet me with a hug, recapping my every word, telling me how amazing it was, often very teary-eyed, saying, "I just love the way you presented that message, Ruby." He was indeed my champion, always lifting me up, encouraging me to continue this journey. He too believed in me and gave me the confidence I lacked in myself, just as my dad did. I often say, Scholastic knocked on my door and got me out of my kitchen. I could go further and say, Dick Robinson knocked. I answered. And for 25 years now, we have been touching the lives of children together, one book at a time. When my mom passed away in November, I asked Dick if he would join me in setting up a scholarship fund in her name to honor kids that show an interest in activism. Naturally, he agreed. That is who Dick was, an incredible man who believed in education. So I'd like to share with you something very personal, his last words to me. Dear Ruby, this was my exact thought as I read the story on Lucille Bridges, that she had the belief in education which transferred to you and changed your life and the life of many Americans because of the example she set in taking you to school each day. The great thing was that she did not do it for any other reason than her belief in education and in your future. Because of that determination, that belief, and the way she expressed it, she blazed a path for the future. My father had the same commitment, and he expressed it by ensuring that Scholastic survived to promote the understanding of facts, of information, and access for all young people to better thinking and understanding expressed through the Scholastic magazines and books and the drive of this company. So I do feel a strong kinship with you, Ruby, as the beneficiary of this thinking and drive. Just as you were guided by your mother, so I am proud, as you are, that we can go forward together under the banner of Scholastic and Lucille Bridges on behalf of youth activism, which is what my father tried to promote during his 86 years on this planet. Thanks, Ruby, for recognizing and stating this kinship we share. Always in the work with you, Dick. You see, there was a strong kinship between Dick and myself. Dick had a remarkable way of engaging people where it matters the most, the heart. And although we were raised by different parents at different times and in different spaces, we had so much in common. Our common thread was our desire to impact children through education and show them the world through books. Dick Robinson leaves a legacy that so many will never be able to match. He changed lives, one book at a time. And yes, he definitely changed mine. May Dick's spirit live on through each and every one of us. I thank you and go in peace.
In 1923, Dick's father, M.R. Robbie Robinson, launched an arts recognition program for teenagers that nearly 100 years later, and with Dick's guidance, is now the longest running, most comprehensive, most generous program of its kind in America. Each year, the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards celebrates our nation's most talented young creative teenagers, young artists and writers. Like his father before him, Dick knew how crucial it is to celebrate the creative spirit in young people. One young man, a 2018 Scholastic Awards recipient and that year's National Student Poet, remembers the moment he shook Dick's hand backstage at Carnegie Hall. He remembers the moment he shook his hand. And so he's written an original poem for today, an ode to that moment.
Here's a love poem to hands, as if I am young and they are given to me to wear at a funeral. And what if I say I've never mourned for a beloved's face as I have for their hands, crossed one over the other exactly where I look when I am young and I don't want to look. I'm afraid of my hands. I've never known how to hold them. Maybe it's because an open, resting hand is nothing like the moon except in the way I look at it, the way I imagine shooting off into the sky of the palm and living there, held in my living. Once I met a man whose hand put into motion much of my own living. And didn't he look worn as the ill-worn face of a planet? Didn't I later say I never knew him, that I only shook his hand as he ceded much of his living to me, like an ill-fated gardener turning his back, inspecting the earth, forgetting instantly where the tree had been planted? Didn't I grow and multiply even without his knowing me, like I have each time a mother dips her fingers into my palm like in an ocean, tracing the ripples there? And there is beauty in the way that I shiver, not with the cold. So it's when hands unbecome hands that I love, when they move injured as an infant's, impaired by the guidance of a beloved's hand. This is my favorite way the body moves, as it gives and takes touch, as it tells you of all the time it's spent in a mouth, it's being cut back like the brush.
Well, I can only imagine Dick smiling down upon us right now, side by side with his father, swelling with pride. It's my honor to join this platform with all of you to pay tribute to Dick Robinson, an extraordinary common man. And I use the phrase common because, as we all know, Dick identified with everyone from all walks of life. He loved an underdog. And what education and literacy could do for a person, and more importantly, how it made the world better for all of us. My name is Jimmy Barge. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Lionsgate and longtime board member here at Scholastic. And it's been my privilege to work alongside Dick and to be part of this journey in the Scholastic mission. That mission is shared by so many. It's lovingly stitched into the carpets within this building. It's artistically painted on the stairs within this building. And more importantly, it's shared universally throughout the Scholastic galaxy by our educators, our authors, and in the content we publish. From Hunger Games to Harry Potter, from Clifford the Big Red Dog to Magic School Bus. On a personal note, much as Peter mentioned at the top of this program, when I first met Dick about joining the board at Scholastic, it wasn't about my credentials or perhaps my shortfalls, but he wanted to know about the journey, the things that you don't put on your resume. Well, for me, some of the things that resonated with Dick was the fact that I had failed the fourth grade and what education had done for me. Likewise, that our two children were hearing impaired. And we had, through speech therapy, read thousands and thousands of kids' books to our children. One of my favorite was Goodnight Moon, and it happened to be one of Dick's favorites as well. All the way to Dick's generosity, supporting my sister in her mission work to Haiti with books for kids, in French Creole, no less. Or to embracing underdogs from my alma mater, the University of Georgia, an NCAA football star who was struggling with his own literacy with grade school reading at university, and joined a ladies group, book club, to help improve himself. And he goes on to be a Super Bowl champion and a Scholastic author, and his own champion now of literacy. Like so many of us, I'm in denial by choice. But I'll remember you, Dick, in so many ways. And in this context, I'll just briefly quote my own poet laureate, Sir Elton John, about a different journey, Daniel's song. Daniel's traveling tonight on a plane. I can see Daniel waving goodbye. God, it looks like Daniel. Must be the clouds in my eye. Haven't we all cried a bucket of tears, crocodile tears? I know I have. Daniel, you're my brother. You're older than me. Your eyes have died, but you see more than I. Wow, Dick's vision for the world. Daniel, you're a star in the face of the sky. For me, that star is the moon. And when I see that full moon, I see Dick's round face, his expressive, soft blue eyes, and his broad smile illuminating the world below, illuminating the world as he has for his entire life. Lord, I miss Daniel. I miss him so much. Good night, Moon. Good night, Dick. We all love you. And with that, I'd like to turn the program over to some present and past employees who've also shared that mission, scholastic mission, with Dick. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frank Wong from Hong Kong. When I came to New York for the job interview with Dick, he made me feel at home right away, that it did not feel like an interview at all. None of those typical questions about my strength or weakness or what have I accomplished in the past. In fact, I cannot remember Dick asking me a single question. It felt more like a personal chit-chat for an hour. After the interview, I went uptown to meet the headhunter. But halfway through the meeting, his secretary came in to say that Mr. Robinson had just called, but he didn't want to interrupt us. He just wanted to leave a message that he had enjoyed meeting me. What a warm personal touch. I said to myself, if that's the culture at Scholastic, I have found myself a home. And that was 18 years ago. Dick, we will miss your kindness and your personal touch, but we'll promise to always do the right thing by the children. Rest in peace. Your legacy will continue in Asia.
Dick Robinson's wisdom and kindness shone through from every treasured email or conversation. One of my favourite stories was at the Bologna Children's Book Fair. Dick and I had a meeting just off the Scholastic stand. We set off and Dick bumped into one of his many international publishing friends, then a Scholastic author, then a licensing partner, and so on and so on. Needless to say, we were very late for our meeting, but in each conversation, with absolutely infectious enthusiasm, he bridged the oceans and inspired all of those he bumped into. He had an enormous gift for making you feel better than you are, remembering details of your business, your family, or your life, and above all, seeing the value in working together. He was the man of the world without barriers. His quiet voice and clear words of encouragement stay in our thoughts as we continue his legacy and remember a true giant in the world of global children's books and a genuinely warm and lovely man.
Hi, I'm Alan Boyko, and I had the pleasure of working with Dick Robinson for many years. And I can remember my very first meeting with Dick. I had been president of Scholastic Book Fairs for a couple of years, but I had reported to someone else. And when Dick took over, I approached the meeting with Dick the way we had all of our meetings. We started with a book talk, an agenda, and at the top of the agenda was a book talk. So I sent Dick my agenda with a book talk, and that first meeting we had, I gave my book talk, and we went through the business and had a good meeting. The next week, I sent him the agenda with a book talk, and we had a good meeting. But I started thinking, I wondered if that book talk was working for him, because he never volunteered to give me a book talk. So anyway, but a few weeks went by, and then I said, well, I'm going to not do a book talk this week. Well, we had missed a couple meetings because he was busy or I was busy. And I sent him the agenda, and we are having our conversation Monday morning. And the first thing Dick said was, hey, Alan, where's my book talk? And from that day on, I knew that we were going to have a lot of really good conversations around books. And a lot of the conversations around the books we were selling, the ones that I thought we wanted to sell to every kid. They were just so good that how do we figure out how to get them into the hands of every girl and boy we can reach? But we had so many conversations around books that we were reading, he was reading, or I was reading. One of my favorites was around this book, When Books Went to War. And it's a fascinating story about the American Library Association and the American Booksellers Association working together to get books into the hands of servicemen during World War II. And they created these, with the help of Reader's Digest and Western Publishing Company, they created these little books from all the bestsellers. And they would fit right in the serviceman's pocket. And we had just a wonderful conversation around this book and what we might do. It would be great if kids could, all carry their books around in their pocket like this. The other book that I had a lot of fun with was Edward de Bono's Six Thinking Hats. I had my staff reading this book, and de Bono describes how we use emotions affect us, and people will enter conversations or meeting carrying different emotions with them. If they have their black hat on, well, they're being really cautious. They're being very conservative. If they have a red hat on, they're being very emotional, right? They're excited about something. If they have their yellow hat on, well, the sun is shining, right? Everything is going well. If they have a green hat on, they're thinking about the future. They're very creative. And I shared that book with Dick, and we had some wonderful conversations, and it really helped us communicate, because I could always tell, where we were and when we talked about what kind of color hat do you have on today. But with Dick, it was easy because he always had on his yellow hat or his green hat. He was, very creative, very artistic, and always looking towards the future. And I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss those conversations with Dick around all those books we shared together.
Hello, my name is Jerry Wilson. Been an honor working for Dick Robinson for the last 39 years. And he was always a great man when he came into Jeff City. He came here to the hometown here to visit the facility and talk to the employees and stuff. And I can remember one day when he came in and he asked who I was. I said, well, my name's Jerry Wilson. He goes, well, what do you do? I said, well, Dick, I make sure I get books in the hands of kids so that they can learn something, read it, and get something out of it, and use it sometime in their life when they get older. That way they always have something that they can look back on and refer to. I read this in a Scholastic book, and I learned a lot. And that's why I enjoy working here at Scholastic yet, too. And Dick Robinson's memory will live on for as long as we're going.
Hi, my name's Marjorie Mayer, and I'm honored to be speaking to you at Dick Robinson's memorial. He was my boss, my friend, my mentor, and I miss him deeply. So Dick was a person of many personas to different people. He was a CEO, he was a Francophile, he was a teacher rock star. But to me, who he really was an impassioned leader who saw that Scholastic could raise up the lives of children, and especially those children most in need. It's not a surprise that this is something he cared about. He saw the price that students paid when he was a young teacher, and he realized that students who fell behind had their options cut off from them. That's why when we brought him Read 180, he championed it. Read 180 is now 20 years old and has helped millions of students to go to college and to pursue careers they were interested in. Its results are immeasurable. But then how do we talk about it? Well, let's talk about one student who was a teen in Texas. He was a gifted athlete, should have been eligible for an athletic scholarship, but his grades were too poor and he had reading difficulty. He went into Read 180, his grades went up, his reading went up, he got into Texas A&M, he's focused on sprinting. That team is Fred Curley, who is the fastest man in the United States, having won the silver medal at the Tokyo Olympics this summer. For me, students like Fred Curley are Dick's legacy. Turning around the lives of children, this revolutionary publisher worked nonstop, perched in his New York office, with the goal of enriching children's lives, engaging children's minds, and above all, teaching them. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Karen Mapp. I want to first thank the family and friends and colleagues of Dick Robinson for asking me to say a few words about this incredible individual and to be a part of this celebration of his life. In their research on what it takes for schools to improve and work for all kids, researchers Tony Breich and Barbara Schneider found that trust, specifically relational trust, is key to the improvement of schools. They also found that the leader is instrumental in creating this culture of relational trust in a school or an organization. In my work as a consultant and author at Scholastic, I would say that Dick Robinson was the Mac Daddy, or the Albus Dumbledore, so to speak, of this relational trust. Relational trust is made up of 4 elements, and Dick absolutely embodied all 4 of these elements. The first element is respect for others, and this respect is evidenced by the ability of a person to genuinely listen to what others have to say. In my conversations with Dick, I always felt seen and heard by him. And I was always struck by his humbleness and his generosity. I could also see, and we've heard this over and over again today, how much he respected and valued what others had to say. The second element is personal regard and openness to others. Dick was so open and friendly and welcoming to everyone he met. He created a feeling of family at Scholastic, which was the main reason that I signed on to be a partner here, that feeling of family. The third element is competence, and it goes without saying that Dick was a competent leader. But this element of relational trust also means that we have to let others know that they are competent, that we value their expertise. I remember a time when Dick and I had an exchange where we weren't exactly on the same page, and he didn't pull rank, he didn't make me feel small. In fact, I remember his humility and his respect for my point of view. Finally, the last element of relational trust is personal integrity, where a moral, ethical perspective guides one's work. I remember when I first met Dick Robinson, he asked me to read from Scholastic's Credo. I know now more than ever that that credo actually reflects the moral and ethical standards that Dick Robinson lived by every day of his life. In closing, I know that Dick often called this building, where we are today, the house that children's books built. But I'd like to add that because of Dick Robinson, that this is also the house that relational trust built. And I hope it always remains that way, because that would be one of the best ways that we could honor Dick's legacy. Thank you, and I now would like to welcome Pam Allen and kindergarten teacher Beth Price.
I have many wonderful memories of my friend, my mentor, my ally, my champion, my great and dear partner in thinking about literacy and how it impacts teachers and children, Dick Robinson. I will miss you for always. I have many great memories, but one in particular really stands out. One time when we were at NCTE, which he loved going to, and the teachers are all over and talking to the teachers, and that's so much fun. We were at the booth, and for some reason, we ended up alone at the booth. I have no idea why, but it was just the two of us. And we looked around and realized that it was just us. So we started to kind of like sell stuff. We both like to sell stuff. So we ended up just selling everything we could at the booth, all the different kinds of things we were talking about. And people came and they were signing their names and having us take orders and things like that. And then he went down to sit down to rest. And he was sitting in this very tiny little child's chair for some reason. And I noticed that he was getting tired. So I went around and I told some of the teachers that there is Dick Robinson, the CEO of this amazing company. So they all came over to him and I had them gather around and I told them a little bit of the history, and then they kind of one by one went over to talk to him. And he was sitting in this little chair and everyone kind of crouched down beside him, and this one woman sat down or crouched down next to him and she started to cry. And she said, every year I come to NCTE and I hear you speak at the Thanksgiving supper, and it changes me every year. It reminds me of why I teach and why that is so important, the work I do. And I want to thank you for that. Not only all the work you do to make these beautiful books and programs, but that message that you send about the importance of teaching. So when she left, I asked Dick, what did you think of that? And he said, that is exactly why I do this work. So Dick, I thank you for that and all the funny, serious, wonderful, big, small moments that we've spent together. And I'll think of you always.
Hello, my name is Beth Prince. I'm a kindergarten teacher in DC Public Schools and a Scholastic Teacher Advisor. I want to begin by reading an excerpt from the poem The Dash by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said that what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spend on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend the dash. From his close friends and family's perspective, I am sure Dick's dash was filled with love his whole life. From taking over his father's magazine and making reading books cool for children all across the world, he filled that dash with joy and wonder. I remember meeting him for the first time in 2006. He struck me as a big kid that was giddy with excitement that all of these teachers were there to visit his company. He told a few jokes and showed us around, and then handed us off with a wave and a smile into the capable hands of his staff, who treated us like royalty. Over the years, working as an advisor at Scholastic, he popped into as many meetings as he could whenever he was available. He called us by our first names, by memory, and most importantly, he listened. Teachers are often not listened to, especially as it relates to those in higher positions. But he wanted our opinions, and our advice was put into action under his leadership. I will miss seeing that warm smile in our meetings, but he has passed on that grace to his staff, several of whom I call my friends. His legacy will live on through them and his family.
Hi, my name is Reggie Nadelson, and I'm glad to say that Dick and I were friends. What I want to say really has nothing to do with Scholastic or family or child literacy, but about friendship. And I wanted to start with a story about another friend, Connie Santamaro. When she was just 21, she went to work at Scholastic, and she said it was the most wonderful time of her life. She said that she got in the elevator one day, having no idea that Dick knew who she was, as she calls herself a little nobody from Brooklyn. And he said, "Hello, Connie." And she said, he was a person who made her feel not like a nobody, but a somebody. I met Dick first at breakfast at Balthazar about 20 years ago. He often came in for his boiled egg and bowl of cafe au lait. In those days, a group of us had informal breakfasts, and when Dick turned up, it was a special occasion. Later, we started having occasional dinners. Dick and I had a kind of friendship that had nothing to do with work. We talked about politics endlessly, boringly to a lot of people. And we talked about books that we loved. We talked about movies. His favorite, like mine, was On the Waterfront. And we talked about the fact that we were both incurable English majors. It turned out that my boyfriend in England and Dick had been in the same lecture room at Cambridge about 1,000 years ago, and they could hold forth on the Fairy Queen, which nobody else in the world has ever read since. He also loved trash noir novels, which was a good sign for me. These last 4 or 5 years, of course, there was a lot of politics, too much, but what I loved were his stories, especially his story about either dropping out of or being kicked out of Harvard, depending how many glasses of wine he'd had. And he went to work in what I can only think of as Tony Soprano's construction site, somewhere in Bronx or Queens, and he loved the idea of himself as a young guy on the street with all the other young guys. Now, there's something you won't know about Dick. He had many skills, but one of his best was as my drinking coach. He couldn't believe that somebody could only drink 1 glass of red wine or 1 martini. So when we'd go out to dinner, I'd get a second one and pour it in his glass when he wasn't looking. But he always knew. He was hip to everything. And during these awful pandemic years, I saw Dick most weeks, usually at Finelli's Bar across the street from Scholastic. I remember that June of 2020 when they first put a few wobbly tables on the street and we ate cheeseburgers out of paper boxes. And we both agreed that in spite of all the trips to France and dinners at Balthazar, because it was the first time out, it was the best meal we'd ever had. He knew pretty much everything. He was no snob and very much part of the downtown neighborhood. When Sasha, who owns Finelli's, heard that Dick had died, he burst into tears. So I reminded Sasha what Tony Bennett said when he heard Frank Sinatra had died. He said, "I don't have to believe that." Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Dick's wonderful friend and neighbor, Alec Baldwin.
I've had some very interesting neighbors since I've lived in New York. When I lived on 58th Street on the east side, one of my neighbors was a very famous television producer in the 50s and 60s, and I met him in the early 80s, and by then his career was rather quiet. And we'll call him Bill. And Bill loved to drink. He drank a lot, Bill. And when he would come home to our apartment, he lived on the 3rd floor, I lived on the 4th floor. When I was coming up the stairs, there would be Bill laboring to get his key into the door. And he'd be bent over, completely bent over, trying to put the key in the door. And I would say, Bill, can I help you? And he'd just go, eh. And he would be bent over like I thought, did he have a combination lock? Which would be very rare in New York. Did he have a combination lock there and he'd forgotten the combination? I had a couple that lived above me on the Upper West Side, and it was a young couple, and they would have their amorous moments together. And they went on and on and on forever. It was almost unbelievable. And they made every possible sound you could possibly imagine, at every timbre and every pace. Staccato, adagio, you name it. It was unbelievable. So that when my other neighbor and I would meet each other in the hallway, we had that unavoidable look of like, I'll have what he's having, you know? And then I had another neighbor who owned the building I was in, and he would leave the building in the winter so he could turn the heat down. And he rented the apartment to other people, and he would move to another apartment he owned in the wintertime. And his apartment, he rented to some prostitutes, and they ran a brothel out of there on the ground floor of my building. And one day I came home and the police were there arresting everybody. I'm going to shift to LA for a moment, when I would often see a shy, elderly, white-haired couple walking up 2nd Street in Santa Monica near Idaho on their way to the market, to have a coffee, to go to the doctor. I didn't know. They seemed very, very sweet. Later on, I found that it was Whitey Bulger and his wife. who were on the lam from the FBI. They lived down the block from me back in 2001. So when I moved into the building I currently live in, and this bright-eyed older gentleman came toward me, he ruined my streak. He greeted me at the elevator many mornings, and I wondered, oh no, what is he into? Sometimes dressed in a suit. I wonder, was he a drug dealer or an Irish hitman? Sometimes dressed in a suit, sometimes doused in sweat from a power walk. When over time he formally introduced himself and told me what his business was, I was floored. He said the word scholastic, and he muted the word scholastic like some people mute Harvard or Juilliard. He was humble in a way you rarely see anymore. Of course, I knew what scholastic was, and I knew some of the great writers they had published. But I did not know its history about Dick's father, Dick's own career growing the company, along with his great staff, to the position they occupy today. How I envy all of you who have known this man for many years, my own friendship with him just beginning. Dick is a gentleman of the old school, enormously successful, yes, but humble and kind to me and to my family at the elevator and beyond. When I was asked to present him with the PEN America Award a couple of years back, it was not only his honor, it was mine. My sincerest sympathies and thanks to Billy DeMichelle and everyone at Scholastic, to Yole Lucchese, to Dick's family, and to the publishing world, which has lost someone who is truly irreplaceable. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you all for sharing your beautiful memories, and thank you for your stunning poem, Darius Arafat Peckham, 2018 National Student Poet. We end today with one final story, Dick's story, his message to us. Thank you for enriching our lives, Dick. We will miss you, friend, but we will carry on, holding you forever in our hearts and in our minds.
There's something special about who we are and what we do at Scholastic that makes us different. And doing that every day for the past 100 years and looking to the next 100 is what keeps us relevant and ever present in our society and for the children we serve.
Holidays are about imagination and children, and books and reading are an important part of that.
If you think about what draws people to reading, especially young people, it's the sense of discovering the world. It's the sense of being like the character. It's the sense of following the character to find yourself.
In my early 20s, I became an English teacher in a good high school and discovered that while about a third of my students could read well enough, most of them really didn't want to read or did not read confidently, often because the books they were assigned were not connected to their lives. So this became a personal challenge to me. How could I get more kids to read?
Scholastic strength comes from all the people that we reach out to. We find those children, we bring them stories and information that are going to interest them. And we all play a part in engaging the teacher, the school, and the parent to pull all the pieces of the child's life together so that the child can have that moment of understanding. It takes a village to do this. At Scholastic, it takes all 10,000 of us all over the world to make this happen.
If a book was written about your life story, what would it be called?
One of my father's favorite words was resilience. So I would say it would be called Resilient Richard.
I'll look forward to seeing that in the Scholastic catalog.
We continue to find new ways of reaching children and provide the experiences and materials that will help them read and learn. And we continue to provide stories of hope and courage not only in our books and magazines, but also within ourselves. And you are the people who make this possible, and I am so grateful for your resilience and your dedication. My deepest thanks and gratitude goes out to each one of you now. You have made a difference to our society and to the children we serve. You are so important to the company, your colleagues, and to me personally.
Dick Robinson.
Thank you.
The world can and will be a better place, and we're contributing to that every single day.
Teachers are the key, the power that drives young people forward, the gatekeepers, the encouragers, the providers of learning and hope. Reading is about discovering who you are and how you can fit into the world and improve it. It is that trigger that gives you the power to be someone you never thought you could be. Thank you so much. Okay.